Hi, and welcome to the very first episode of the Life with Five podcast. My name's Ray, and today I'm joined by my beautiful, lovely, amazing wife, Carol. And in today's episode, we're going to share how you can create a God-centered family. You know, it's a new year, and maybe this is one of your goals. You want to be able to honor God, be a part of church more. I don't know what that looks like for you, but this is important. And so we want to give you a tool to help you on that journey, something called a family vision frame, something we're trying for our family this year.
That's right. Well, a little bit about us. Ray and I have been married for almost 20 years in June. We're super excited to celebrate that.
Going to Costa Rica, baby.
Yes, without the children for 2 whole weeks. So we could not be more excited. But we are the parents of 5 kids. We have 3 boys, 2 girls. They range in age from 7 to 16, and they're involved in a lot of things. We're also pastors in the Phoenix area, and we love doing that, and we love all the things that we get to do with our kids, but our schedule can get really hectic really quickly. And we found that, we have limited time and resources just like you, and we really wanted to bring some intentionality to how we're spending it and make sure we're making the best use of our time.
Yeah, I love that word intentionality she just used, because that idea really is what brings about vision. And so vision in Proverbs 29:18, it says this: where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. And it's that idea that people just do what they're going to do, what they think is best. And a lot of times we think, well, why are they doing that? Maybe it's because they don't have a clear vision of what could be or where they could go. And I heard one person say, in the absence of clarity, people come to their own conclusions. And I want you to think about that in your marriage. Maybe if you have kids with them, do they come to their own conclusions and you just ever scratch your head and think, why did they do that? Maybe it's because there's a lack of vision. And so we first heard about the vision frame in the church world and ministry because we're pastors, and a gentleman by the name of Will Mancini, who has a real heart for the church, love what he is doing. He talks about this in the context of the church. So we thought maybe we could adapt that for our own family and our own lives.
Yes. In a real broad overview, we'll get into more specifics, but the vision frame concept, it's like a picture frame. There's 4 sides with the vision in the center. The vision is the star of the show. It's your preferred destination. It's where God is taking you, where you want to end up.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about that as a frame. You don't want a junky frame on a great picture, but you also don't want a bad picture in a really beautiful frame. And so both parts are really important. So the vision is the center, but then on one side of that frame is what we would call the mission. So the vision is, where is God taking us? The mission is going to answer the question, what are we doing, or what do we need to do? So Jesus gave the example, or gave us a mission, a mandate, if you will, and it was to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and it was to love others as ourselves. And then he said, go and make disciples. That was his mission he gave us. So that's a mission for all of us, for every church, for every individual. Yes. But then there's specific mission really within our own families as well.
Yeah. And the next part of the frame is the core values. And this is going to answer the question, why? These are the things that are most important to you, to your family, and they're really going to inform your vision. You can't get to where you want to go if you don't know why you're trying to get there.
Yeah, this is really answering who are you at your core? I love the book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. It's a few years old now, but I remember when I first read that, I was like, wow, this just clarifies so much. And when you know your values, you can get to your vision, like Carol said. Yeah. The next part of that frame is going to be your strategy. And this is going to be, how are you going to do this? What is the plan? You can't just kind of go out there and haphazardly hope that you get there, which I think honestly is what a lot of us do. It's not because we want to necessarily, but it's because, again, what Carol said, we're not intentional. So how can we be intentional in creating a plan to get from where we are to where God wants us to be?
Yeah. And the final piece of the frame is called the scoreboard. And these are your metrics. It's how you measure and know that you're going in the right direction. It's the mile markers, so to speak, if you go back to that map analogy. But these are the ways that you can measure your success and gives you wins to celebrate along the way, which is also so important.
Yeah. And so I know we went through that pretty quickly. We're going to talk about our own vision frame for our family, kind of as an example to set that up so you can see what it looks like. But if you want to get your own vision frame with the different pieces, the different questions you're answering, as well as you can see what ours looks like. And so you can be like, boy, I don't know what they were thinking there. Or that's a really good. Maybe that would work for our family. You can download that. We'll leave it in the link in the description. But these are really important questions that we want to make sure that we're answering as we walk through this process.
Yes. So you might be thinking, how do I even get started in creating my own family vision frame? So we're going to kind of walk you through our process so you can see what that looks like. It's not the only way to do it, but this is how we did it. So we want to give you an example. But our process is to go through those questions, the where, the what, the why, do those individually first. So we find our separate spaces and take time to pray and go through them each individually first, and then we come together and talk about it, and we narrow it down. Ray usually has a lot more ideas than I do, so.
Well, I just tend to talk through my ideas more.
Okay.
Carol thinks through her ideas more. I think
Sure.
Carol's ideas are often really, really solid and thought out because she's taken time to prepare. Sometimes mine are a little bit just like all over the place. And so my method was I just wrote a bunch of stuff down on a piece of paper.
Right.
And then we came back and we talked and I was like, what was I don't even know what I was thinking there. So like your process is going to be unique, but it is important to understand the dynamics of your relationship because you're probably going to arrive at that vision a little bit differently. And then you're going to have to agree on some things, make some compromise on some things. That's an important part of the process. So let's go through the vision frame. All right. We're going to walk you through our family vision frame and we'll start with the vision. And our vision is this: bringing love and laughter wherever we go. So we like to laugh. Carol's a generous laugher, one of the many great reasons to be married to her.
So if you're a pastor, you're welcome. I laugh at all your jokes.
Yes, she laughs at the corny dad jokes. Like our kids are like, Mom, stop.
That's not funny. Yeah.
But we do love to laugh as a family. I think our kids are actually pretty funny and they have a good sense of humor. You know, life's too serious and got too much going on to always be serious. And so make sure you have that laughter. And then the part about love, I think love is one of those big words that like could be a million different things to a million different people. So for us, we go to the biblical kind of version of love, and that is God is love. And so we want to bring God and joy wherever we go.
Right. In our mission, we say our heart is to love, honor, and bless our family, friends, and community. And Ray already touched on love, but when we speak about honor, we believe that all people are created in the image of God. So we want to teach our children to see that in other people, to make sure that the way that they see people and think about people and treat people is so important that they're honoring and respecting others. And then we want to be a blessing to our family, friends, and community. And we've been blessed so much by the people in our lives, by God, of course. And we just want to pay that forward and be a blessing to others and give our kids opportunities to do that as well.
Yeah, that's so good. And we really have been the beneficiaries of so many blessings. And so it's exciting when you get to actually be a blessing to somebody else because you know how much it meant to you on the other side of that. And so we move from our vision and mission now to our values. It's going to be another side of the frame. And we have 5 values. We'd say this. I generally would say kind of stick between 3 and 5 values. You can have more. I just think once you get beyond 5, they kind of stop being core values and they start being important values. So I'd really try to whittle it down. It's not to say that you can't. You could have 10, but I think it's easier probably to keep track of if you have 3 or 4 or 5. So we have 5, and our first value is love, and we just have a little kind of tagline with each one. So love has, we start with love. And I just want you to think about in your marriage right now, if you started with love in your conversation, how might have maybe changed some of the conversations you had this week? If you started with love when you're speaking to your kids instead of frustration or being annoyed or whatever it might be, instead of assuming that they did something for a reason that you don't even know if that's true, how might your conversations be different? So we want to start with love.
Yes. Our second value is communication. And honestly, this is an area where our family has struggled in the past. So we want to bring some intentionality this year to really grow and develop in this area. And we say we take time to listen and learn. We forgive quickly and share honestly. And we all know that it's important to listen, but a lot of times we listen with the intention of figuring out what we're going to say next.
Never.
Never, of course. But we really want to listen to understand and to learn from each other where the other person is coming from. And we forgive quickly in a world that likes to hold grudges and remind you of all the things that you've done wrong. We forgive quickly because that's so important. We're for each other. We're a team and we're working together. And share honestly. Honesty is so important. We know there's always going to be issues and we have to be open and honest so that we can get to the heart of them and resolve them.
Yeah. And on that forgiveness, I just echo what Carol said there, that forgiveness is so important because Jesus forgave us of so much. And so we want to reflect the image of Christ, right? And then also that sharing honestly. I would just say this is something I really struggled with. We'll probably talk about it in a future episode, but you have to create safe places for people to be able to share honestly. So it's a great, value to say, we're going to share honestly, but are you creating a safe place where people can be valued and heard when they do share honestly? Otherwise, they're going to shut down and they're going to tune out and move a different direction. So another value is purpose. And this is really important to us. We believe that God has created every single person with a purpose for a purpose, that you have a call on your life. If you're listening, watching this right now, God has a purpose for your life, for your family, for your marriage. And so don't just kind of wander through it, live on that in that purpose. And we say we live out our purpose by worshiping God and serving others. So we believe we're just simply created to worship God. That just means saying yes to Him in every area of our life, obeying Him when He speaks to us. And the other part of that is serving others. And we see Jesus modeled this for us. And that's what I love about Jesus. He models what we're supposed to do. And so if we just look closely at His life, we'll see everything we need.
That's so good. Our next value is creativity. And we say we find joy in trying and creating new things. And creativity can mean different things to different people. We see that very much in our family. Like I lean more towards the arts when it comes to creativity.
It's her way of saying I don't. But it's true.
It's true. A lot of our kids do as well. They play instruments, write songs, they draw well, they can make crazy crafts out of almost nothing. It's ridiculous. But then there's the other side of creativity, which Ray really excels in, and that's coming up with creative ideas and solutions to problems. And we really want to encourage that in our kids as well, to not give up when things are hard, just to try something different.
Yeah. To know that when there's an obstacle there, it's not the end. There's just another opportunity that we have to discover. So I love that. Then our last value is fun. We find ways to have fun is what we say. So there's always a way to have fun. I just feel like, life is hard and difficult in certain seasons, and man, it can wear you down. So you got to make sure that you have some fun. I don't think God wants us to be miserable and hate life. I think He wants us to have joy and to have fun and to be able to laugh. And even in the most difficult situations, we choose a mindset, a mentality of we are going to have fun no matter what.
Definitely. Now we're going to move into our strategy. And remember, strategy answers the question, how? How are we going to get to where we're going? It's our roadmap. So we've tied a strategy to each one of our core values. And our first value of love, the strategy that goes with it, says we put each other before ourselves. And we really want to instill that in our kids and in each other as well, to be people who prefer others, who serve and give of our time and our efforts, and to understand that we're not the most important people in the world, that we're really put here to love and to give generously of our time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another part of our strategy that goes along with the value of communication is we listen to learn and speak life. So we've already kind of hit on the listening and the learning part. So let's speak to that speak life part. And we live in a culture and in a day, in a time where it's super trendy and fashionable to criticize and critique and to find people's flaws. Like that's like people live for that stuff. It's like we live to be offended sometimes and to be bothered by something, to attack someone as if we are not going to focus on our own flaws and things that we need to work on. So we want to be people who do the opposite, and we speak life, words of encouragement that will build up and help people feel a little bit better about their day. I mean, there's so many people going through so much stuff, and we just want to be people who will speak life into them and push them towards the call that God has in their life.
Yes. And along with our value of living in our purpose, we say we worship, serve, and give generously. And it's really important to us that we give our kids opportunities to be in church, to be around people who love Jesus and are going to encourage them and teach them what following Jesus really looks like, and to worship God with all of our hearts and with all of our souls in every area of our life. And also to serve. I love when our kids have opportunities to serve. We've talked about that a little bit, but we serve in church, we serve out of church, and giving them those opportunities to just be a blessing in our community is so important. And we give generously. We're tithers. And
if you don't like tithing, by the way, if you're not familiar with that, maybe I didn't grow up in church, so I had no idea what tithing meant. But that's giving the first 10% of what you have back to God, and we do that, through the form of usually the local church, but it could be whatever area is filling your life up with. And so if you're not a 10%er though, and you're a New Testament person out there, and you say, well, the New Testament doesn't teach that. It actually teaches you to give more. So you can give more. I don't know. But really just give cheerfully, be generous. That's the point we're making.
Yeah, and I love to see when our kids, they get lots of presents and lots of money from family out of town because we don't live close to them. And so it's always really cool to see them choose to give in the offering, or to buy gifts to donate to other people, or even just buy gifts for each other. And they put lots of thought and creativity into that. And it's just so amazing to see them give generously.
Absolutely. And then along with creativity, we say we celebrate imagination. I think for me, I can often think my way is the best way. Like, I'm sure nobody else out there thinks that, but I tend to think that a lot. And I just come to realize over the year, even though that tends to be where I lean towards, like my way is the best way. That's obviously why I picked it, right? But you start to see that there are so many different ways that things can be accomplished, and the imagination that goes into it is absolutely just crazy and awesome to see. And so we don't want to stifle imagination in our kids. We want them to know that there's many different ways that God can use them, and they can arrive to different places, to whether that's solving a problem or just creating something new and fun. And so let that imagination breathe, and that's something that's really important to us.
Yes. Another strategy, we play hard and we cheer each other on. And we value hard work. We instill that in our kids, that there's a time to work hard and dig in, and we expect them to do that when it's time. But we also play hard, and we love to have fun and cheer each other on. They all have different things that they're passionate about and areas that they enjoy. And we want to be each other's biggest fan and be on the front row cheering each other on. I love it so much.
Like we have one who wants to be a gymnast or a dancer. We got one that's a baker, basketball player, football player, theater, singer. It's just, we got all the kind of the whole gamut there. But we do play hard. Like, we don't let our kids win games.
No.
We just feel like that's good parenting. You beat them down when they're young. But then they appreciate when they win. Here's the thing, because they have actually beat us at games now that they're a little bit older. Even the young ones have beat us at games. And they really celebrate it because they defeated mom and dad. Like, no mercy on our part. We play to win the game.
Yes, definitely.
And then the last part of the vision frame is our scoreboard. And this part's really crucial because it's going to tell you whether or not you're winning or losing. Like, our son played football this year, and their scoreboard always glitched. You would never know how much time was left in the quarter. You would never know what down and how far they had to go. It was constantly wrong or just glitching. And it's so frustrating because you're trying to figure out things. But I want you to imagine if you're married and maybe your spouse, or you have kids and maybe your kids, they don't know whether or not they're winning or losing. Maybe they think they're doing the right things, but they're actually losing in your mind. How awful is that for them? They think that they're putting in all this work to do something that actually isn't moving the ball forward. And so we want to make sure we're really clear on our scoreboard.
Yes. And so we're going to talk about a few things. One thing that we like to do is use our family dinner time. And that's very intentional for us. We eat dinner as a family almost every night. And once in a while, somebody will be missing for practice or whatever. But every night we sit down as a family to eat, and we share our highs and lows for the day. And it's just a good way to gauge where they're at and hear what's going on in each other's lives. And then once a week, we'll share a kindness story, something kind that we did for someone else. And then something new we're trying right now is we're calling it a kudos jar. And what we do is if somebody in our family does something kind for us, then we just write a note and stick it in the jar. But it's really to encourage them to see the good in each other and to call it out, to get in the habit of acknowledging those things. And so then Sunday nights we sit down to dinner and we pour the jar of kudos out on the table and we read through them all, and it's really fun. And then we draw one random one for a prize. And you don't have to do a prize. We do something simple like a $5 Dollar Tree shopping spree or
it's quite a shopping spree,
right? But they like it. They get lots of candy, blizzards, smoothies, whatever. It doesn't have to be elaborate, just something little to encourage them to keep doing it. But we give the prize to the person who wrote the kudos. Sometimes we do it also for the person who it was written about, but really our goal here is to encourage them to see the good and to acknowledge that.
And what I want you to see is that with that dinner time, it's very clear and measurable. We can tell, did we have dinner together and did we do our highs and lows? Right. Did we talk about our weekly kindness story? Did we do the kudos jar? Are there items in the kudos jar that are written about, to see, are we moving towards that idea of an attitude of gratitude? Like, are we creating and facilitating that? So it's really, really clear. Yeah. So another part of our scoreboard, and we have a lot of different things. You'll see when you download the version, by the way, you can get the whole list. We're not going to do that to you and go on for 45. We did it once and we're like, wow, that is a lot of stuff. So you can see everything. We're just kind of highlighting a few, but we try to every day just use the time that we already have with our kids, use it wisely. So we pray with our kids on the way to school. And that way they not only hear our heart for them, but they also hear, I think, God's heart for them. And that's important. And it's just those little rides that we do every single morning. And then we have something called a Speak Life jar. We have jars everywhere. Jars galore. Carol loves a good piece of decor.
So cute.
Yeah. You want to explain a little bit about the Speak Life jar?
Yeah. So the idea behind the Speak Life jar is we just take a quarter and drop it in the jar each time we hear one of the kids saying something encouraging or life-giving to another person in the family. And when we get enough quarters in the jar, we're all going to go to Dairy Queen for blizzards.
You hear a lot about blizzards here.
We love blizzards. Who doesn't?
It's going to be a long time, though. Lest you think that we do everything right and well, this is not one that's taken off.
No, it's a little bit of a struggle. Our kids are really kind to other people, but they're not really in the habit of speaking kind, encouraging words to each other. But that's the point of this. We want to make that a habit in their lives and giving them a visible way that they can see, and a goal that we're working together towards, I think, is so important.
Yeah, and so we see the kudos jar filled. That helps us know we're winning. We see the Speak Life jar pretty empty. That tells us we need to tweak some things. We need to focus because we're not winning. We're losing in that area. So how do we make that shift? How do we maybe create a little bit more intentionality and create more focus on that? And again, that's why you need a scoreboard. It tells you not just when you're winning, it feels good when you're winning, but also when you're losing, so you can adjust your strategy, right, accordingly. Right. And then another part of our scoreboard is we want to make sure that our kids are reading and studying their Bible as well as us. And we try to model that. I feel like we do model that pretty well. Regularly in the morning we're reading or we're taking time to pray with them. But the reason we want this to be a part of their life is they can't live their faith off our faith. Right. And they also need to find their identity. And the world's going to tell them their identities in all that they accomplish or who other people say they are. But we believe that our identity comes from who Jesus says we are. Yeah. And so we want them to discover what God has for them, the plan and purpose for them, and how to live that out. And that comes when they spend time with Him. And we can't do that just for them. We can help facilitate it, but we want to create those spaces. And we've done better in certain seasons than others. And there's constantly something I think that will be a battle that we'll have to wrestle, because honestly, that's not something I think intuitively often we want to do if we don't have the habit of it. And then also we have a very real enemy in the devil who does not want us to find our identity in Christ. He wants to tell us who we are, and who he says we are is never any good.
Right. And then the final thing we wanted to share was we're making it a point to take family vacations, which we have not always been great about doing. We've let the busyness of life get in the way. We've let finances get in the way too. And there are creative ways that you can have a vacation. Even at home, you can change things up. We've set up a tent in our living room before and made s'mores on the stove and turned on the fireplace on Netflix.
That's my favorite type of camping, by the way, because there are bathrooms and showers available.
Yeah, he's not like an outdoorsy person, folks. But we've had some good vacations as well. But the point is just to make time to get away from the normal and to give our kids new experiences and make memories together, because that's going to last a lifetime.
Yeah, it's really, really important. I didn't grow up taking a lot of vacations, so it's really easy to make excuses as to why they're not important. But I would just challenge you, if you're a person who maybe doesn't value the moments and the experiences as much, like I tend not to appreciate as much, make sure that you're doing that, even if not just for you, for your kids, for your spouse. It is really important. So now that we've talked about our family vision frame, we want to give you some tips that will help you with your family vision frame and how to create that, some things that helped us along the way. And the first thing is we would just say, start with your values. We talked about it a little bit earlier when we referenced the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek, but it's the idea of starting with your core values and then let those values inform your vision. So what's valuable to you and what's valuable to us, obviously, is who God is in our life. And so that's going to inform our vision. And it's often easier to identify your values than to know where you want to go right away. It's sometimes easier to just see, okay, this is kind of my why. This is what's really important to me. And then I know this is a big thing also. Make sure you're not violating your values. Make sure you're not betraying those values. Because if you do that repeatedly, what happens is you'll lose hold of the vision. People will stop following because they don't believe that you're authentic and real. And so if you make a mistake, have the humility to go apologize so that you can say, you know what, I violated this value. You don't have to say it that way, but that's essentially what you're saying. And I want to make it right. And so I want to make sure, show you that I'm committed to it. Because we've all worked for bosses, honestly, who say one thing and do another. And we know how frustrating that can be and disheartening it can be. And you just want to quit because it's not fun.
Yeah. So good. And then we want to pray for our vision. We believe that vision comes from God, and being a God-centered family, we want to keep God at the center of this process as well. So take time to pray, even over the course of several days, and allow God to show you where he's leading you and what he's put you here to accomplish as a family.
Yeah, it might honestly take you weeks or months. I mean, really, when you get into the final draft and version of it, which still can change, but it can take time. And so that's another thing we just say, be patient. Don't try and rush. I'm not a very patient person by nature, but I know that if I want the best out of Carol, I have to give her time to think, because I tend to talk through my ideas. She tends to think through her ideas. So her ideas, when they come out, are usually pretty fully formed. Maybe not completely, but they're really good. Mine are kind of like just like wobbling baby steps, and like they're not always really solid, and I need to think through them a little bit more. So just because you're quick with an answer doesn't mean it's a good answer. Give yourself time and you'll come to a better place.
Yeah. And you also might have to force yourself to get specific, to drill down and come up with really concrete, measurable things over just abstract ideas. Because again, the goal is clarity, to give clarity to your life, to your vision, and that's going to help you along the way.
Yeah, that was definitely, I would say, our hardest task there, making sure that we were really drilling down. And that took some time for us and stepping away, like Carol talked about earlier. And then we'd also say, make sure to go back and evaluate. That is not only an okay thing, that is a necessary thing. You need to go back and evaluate all of what you've come up with in your family vision frame, but I'd say specifically your strategies and your measurements, your scoreboard, if you will, because you're going to realize you might be measuring things or tracking your scoreboard in areas that aren't that important, or maybe are really important. You need to go even more in depth, or you might have a strategy how you're attacking something and it's just not working. So you need to do something else.
That's right. Well, now that we've walked through our family vision frame, we really encourage you to do your own family vision frame. And you can find a link to all those resources in the description below. So you can download the different areas and questions to go through, and you'll find our frame in its entirety too, to use as an example.
Yeah. And we'd also, honestly, we want to hear from you. So if you follow us on Instagram, make sure to tag us. If you create your own family vision frame, we'd love to get ideas from you. And if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, leave a comment on how your family vision frame is going. If you have any questions, make sure to leave those in the comments as well. We'll try to go through as many of those as possible. And make sure to hit that bell to get notified anytime we have a new episode. So we want to say thank you so much for joining us for our very first episode of the Life with 5 podcast. We got one down, and we'll make sure to see you guys next time.